Hello, welcome. Buy Loans come out and they've added in a nice little aircraft designer. You can build all sorts of aircraft, basically the same as the tank designer. I will get into some heavier tests later on, but I'm going to just give you guys a basic idea of what you want to do for your fighters. And I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration for those. But this mostly comes from a little bit of the patch notes that they just kind of snuck in right down here. I'll zoom in. They changed agility damage reduction to cap sooner and be smaller overall, aka they nerfed agility, and they moved it sort of to speed. And then they made air combat less deadly overall. They kind of just snuck this in the bottom of the balance changes. No mention of the amounts whatsoever. And it really leads to this situation where in the past you really prioritized agility. Now you want to prioritize air attack for the most part. And defense. Defense is also pretty nice. So if we look at the French, this is the design I've kind of ended up at. It's expensive, don't get me wrong. Same as with the tank designer. Planes are just overall way more expensive. And I've got this 53 agility, 56 air attack. And I've got one with armor plates. They've got all these small little modules here. Armor plates give you an extra bit of air defense for less range, which is pretty nice. If you need that range back, add in some drop tanks. I've gone for 2 engines of the level 3 variety. This is all 1940 tech, and that's simply because of the thrust requirement. A single engine cannot meet the thrust requirement to actually take off. Every bit of thrust you have over your weight gives you 10 speed. So stacking thrust is actually something you can kind of do. You can end up with tactical bombers that have like 1,000 speed, which is just crazy. And then I kind of think these cannons here are super useful. So right now I've got a combat going. I've just been testing the 2x2 cannons with defense versus without defense. And it is not going well for the ones without defense. The ones without defense are 1 IC cheaper, so I gave them 100 extra planes to make it a wash, and boy do they lose hard. So this is the plane I'm going to show a couple other different designs against. Before we go there, I did try this design against just adding an extra one on, so adding 3 cannons, and this doesn't win. This trades evenly with its cheaper alternative, which is just a net loss, because, if you're saving 7 IC and you're trading evenly. Let's go through some other designs for Germany. Oh, and also I was about to set up this test, so we just have 2,000 of these things, and they got rid of the duplicate button. So if I want to restart this test, I got to just delete them and respawn them in, which is really annoying. I don't know why they just get rid of that functionality. I want a new air wing, and I don't want it to have any experience. Let me duplicate rather than having to split to duplicate now. I don't know. Really weird. Anyways, so we had the no defense version, lost. So we're going to just use 1 armor plate. It's 1 IC, costs 2 weight, but it substantially increases your air defense. So we're going to put that on all of our guys. Now I've heard some people just suggest putting 4 heavy machine guns on. Okay, we'll give it a go. Let me just pull out my calculator real quick. We got 41 IC versus 37 IC. So 41 divided by 37 times 2,000, 2216. 2,200 planes it is. So let's let this go for a couple months. So we're definitely not trading well, but we'll have to do the IC comparison because we are a little cheaper. Yeah, so that's a month worth of losses. It's had time to normalize. We just pull up our calculator. We're spending 11% more, but we're managing to shoot down 45% more. It's definitely not 3 machine guns. Well, cheaper, definitely not winning. Maybe we make it even cheaper, give ourselves a bigger advantage in numbers, go down to 34, because that was a twin engine. Let's go down to a single engine. Right now I'm favoring twin engines. 41 divided by 34 times 2,000, 2,400. So let's see how this goes. I don't know, trade's kind of weird. It's a bit even. An even trade's good for us. And that's really what we're seeing here is we're seeing an even trade at the cost difference here. We're looking at 41 divided by 34 or 20% more expensive is the enemy, but we're not losing that many more. We'd need to lose 20.5% more planes for this to be an even trade for them, and we're losing about 6. So single engine with 3 heavy machine guns is winning, okay? And this is a numbers advantage. We're winning because of the numbers advantage, not stats. So let's go change the French plane a little bit. We're going to do this. Same expense, but 2 cannons and 4 heavy machine guns versus 3 heavy machine guns. So because we're back to even cost, they're both going to cost 34 each. We're just going to go back to 2000s. Now let's see how this goes. So we've got 3 heavy machine guns versus a cannon, 1 heavy machine gun. Those are some pretty even trades. Germany's starting to lose slightly more, and it's back to even. I mean, that's very even, which means I would go towards this one. The higher air attack will help you shoot down more planes of the other varieties, of your CAS, of your tactical bombers. This will help you against those versus just having 3 heavy machine guns. You've got better agility, a little bit better speed, but you've got worse air attack. This is going to struggle a little bit more at shooting down planes that have less agility. When you're going to be dealing with tactical bombers, the agility doesn't matter because you're going to both be capped out on agility either way. So I got one last idea left. What if we just make a heavy fighter with a massive amount of cannons? Stupidly expensive to make. I'm going to put up 1,000 of these versus 2,000 because that's about the ratio. We'll swap to the 2 cannons and just a heavy machine gun because that's the one I said I'd go for when I'm dealing with anything that doesn't have massive amounts of agility, right? So that's that one. Get those guys up, deployed, ready to go. Go back to France, wait for the stats to clear out. Okay, and let's do this again. Disappointing. I was not looking for an even trade here, because we'd need to trade 2 to 1. So no, don't just slap a whole bunch of cannons on a heavy fighter and call it a day. What if we swap them to heavy machine guns, though? Just make the heavy fighter version of a Spitfire. So we're going to put up about 1,300 of these guys. That's about an even amount. So let's see how this goes. I didn't quite wait for the data to clear out, but that's fine. If we just let it go for a month, it'll all drop off anyways because we're on days. I mean, we're still looking at a lot of even trades here, so it's not like it matters that much. I mean, it's a slight advantage towards us now, but that's not a huge advantage. Definitely not worth, we're spending, was it 56 IC? 53 IC versus 34. That's not worth it. So I think this guy with one engine might be the early meta. Now, counterpoint is if you just slap 2 engines on it, if you're like the US and don't care about fuel, you're going to have a massive speed advantage. So let's do that comparison. Even with a small airframe, is it worth it using twin engines? So now these guys are more expensive. It's 37 versus 34. So we're going to use about 1,800 on these guys because that's about even. It's harder to do the testing these days because you can't select your air wing size. You have to use, 100. And it's like, well, it says I should use 1,830. Well, what am I going to do with the extra 30? Split the difference? Okay, let's see how this goes. Is it worth the extra fuel to go for twin engines? Well, I mean, I don't think it is unless you're just swimming in fuel. Like, I wouldn't recommend it as Germany. But, the Soviets have quite a bit of fuel. The US has quite a bit of fuel. So, I mean, we're definitely trading better. That speed advantage is definitely worth something because the only difference between the two is just higher speed and a little bit of cost. And if we do this, we got 37 divided by 34, so it's 8.8% more expensive, and we're shooting down 16.67% more. So like if you can afford it, that's quite the advantage. But then you go back into the question of, well, like what if you just added on 4 more heavy machine guns? I feel like we're just going in a circle at this point. You know what I mean? But let's just put it this way. Against the AI, single engine, 2 cannons, an extra heavy machine gun, if you want to. I mean, you could probably get away without it anyways. And add on some armor plates. If you want to get more range, add on some drop tanks. They don't affect combat performance. They're more expensive than extra fuel tanks, but no combat penalty. Also, the only reason I wasn't using self-sealing fuel tanks is the extra rubber cost. If you're swimming in rubber, you can give yourself another 4 air defense for 1 production cost and a rubber. Air defense is really important. It determines how many planes you lose. As for electronics, I wouldn't bother with them. Defensive turrets, not on fighters. Floats are for your ability to do recon and nothing else. Non-strategic material usage guts your air defense, but if you don't have aluminum, I'm basically spending 3 IC to get an extra 2 air defense and reduce the cost of my plane by 2 aluminum. That's pretty important. If you have no aluminum, that's going to half your resource cost, because if you don't have aluminum, you probably don't have rubber. That's going to save you a lot of civs. Otherwise, I wouldn't put bomb leads on this. I mean, for an extra 1 IC, we can do ground attack. I wouldn't bother unless you really can't afford to have separate casts. But you can't do close air support and air superiority at the same time with the same air wing. So I wouldn't really bother doing fighter attack aircraft. It's just not really worthwhile. It's not something you can really do. But yeah, I'd do something like this. For your, 1940 plane, I'd do something around this lines. If you're swimming in fuel, you can add the second engine. That's a lot of extra speed, does a lot of extra damage. And I really think the early meta is going to be finding a way to defeat this plane, or waiting until it gets nerfed. Anyways, thank you for watching. I will be doing a video on forming the Roman Empire. I've actually recorded it already. I don't have time to edit it. We're going to be looking to restore it by mid 37. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I will see you guys next time.